Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to hear some sound examples and actually go through the basic controls and discuss the key features of the Boss ME80. So stick around. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Yes, the Boss ME80 is definitely an older unit, and a lot of old school guitarists, myself included, will actually turn tail and run at the sight of a multi-effects unit, but multi-effect fear isn't altogether irrational, because let's face it, a lot of multi-effects pedals and rack units are bears to work with, especially when time is short and you just want to plug in and play. So this, in my opinion, is where the Boss ME80 really stands out among the myriad of other multi-effects pedals. At least in my opinion, it seems as if Boss has clearly prioritized ease of use, and the surprisingly utilitarian and powerful portable unit is relatively simple to operate, a lot of fun, and it's great for home demo studios, small informal gigs, and even the unorthodox tinkerers who like the straightest possible line to the most possible sounds. Now, when it comes to the build quality of the Boss ME80, it's definitely built for moving from place to place fast, and while it's not super light, it is built like a tank, with an almost entirely metal enclosure and chassis. In fact, apart from the knobs and switches, there's very little plastic at all on this unit. Now, along the same lines of portability, you can also power the Boss ME80 with 6 AA batteries, which means that you can pick it up and move it from room to room, or go from jamming through your headphones in the kitchen to blasting through your amp, all through the uncomplicated glee of like a kid toting around the battery-powered keyboard of yesteryear. If you're a busker playing local gigs or performing at a farmer's market, this kind of portability can definitely be an invaluable resource. So one of the things that really sets apart the Boss ME80 from, say, like the Boss ME50 is the addition of USB connectivity. It really maximizes the creative potential of the ME80, and once you've downloaded the ME80's software, you can literally be writing a riff with the device in your backyard and capture the same sound on your DAW in your bedroom studio a few minutes later. And for those of you who are very opinionated in the comment section already, obviously, yes, you are right, the ME80 isn't the first multi-effect unit or modeler to deliver that same portability and connectivity. Devices like Line 6 POD and Boss's own GT100 do have similar capabilities, and the rank of tablet and smartphone-based guitar interfaces seem to grow daily. But the ME80 offers an interface that's much more familiar and intuitive to the typical Stompbox user, and arguably a whole lot more fun to play with than other devices. So let's talk about some of the onboard effects that really make this a huge contender against its competitors. For starters, the ME80's interface is basically a little hive of stomp boxes. Each of the 4 foot switches that's closest to the guitarist is a bypass switch, dedicated to one of the 4 effects groups. Compression and FX1, which includes a ring modulator and acoustic simulator, among others, overdrive and distortion, modulation and delay, which also includes a looper. These 3 foot switches above and to the left of the 4 main effect switches activate a preamp simulation section, an EQ FX2 section, which also includes even a second phaser, a delay, and a looper, and another reverb control. Now, each effects group has a dedicated set of knobs, including one that selects a specific amp or effect type. To the right of the foot switches, there's an expression pedal for operating pedal effects, such as wah, talkbox, the whammy-style octave, up and down functions, and even more. You can also use the pedal as an expression pedal to control modulation rates and delay levels. The 2 leftmost pedals in the top row also let you select presets when in memory mode, which is activated by the upper right switch. Now, obviously, there is a plethora of very cool factory presets, but creating your own preset is a very straightforward 3-step process. So, from a home studio perspective and a mixing engineer's perspective, the sounds that you can get from the Boss ME80 range from really good to passable. Now, that's depending on the effect or the amp that you use. Some voices, sounds, and effects, such as the tweed amp and the delays, and even the tremolo effect, have a very warm, organic quality and relatively natural dynamic response. Others, such as the heavy phase settings, the ring mod, and most of the heavy distortions, more readily betray their digital roots. It could also be said of this unit that the effects typically put function before freak-out potential. There's a few deep ambient space verbs and fractured delay sounds to be found here. Still, with a bit of tinkering and a little bit of an adventurous spirit, you can actually create a lot of unusual recording-worthy textures, and with the right pairings, make the ME80 sound very lush. So for those of you who are into the lush swells and ambient effects like myself, mating the rotary effect and the spacious and spacey Terra Echo delay, along with a sustain-heavy compressor and a Vox-like combo amp simulation, really generates an expansive, swirling, sci-fi, sometimes even psychedelic tapestry. Now, for the harmonist at heart, there is actually a harmonist effect, which can be set for thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, even an octave above and below. And a little boost and a tape echo will make you sound a lot like Dwayne Allman without the expense and hassle of hiring a second guitarist. Now, I'm not going to lie, there are some peculiarities to get used to on the Boss ME80. For one thing, you have to keep effect levels for modulation and delay effects uniform with overdrive and comp effects if you're using more than one effect. Okay, so before we get into the sound examples, I want to give you sort of my verdict on all of this. Now, the features that we're going to be covering here represent just a small fraction of what the ME80 can do. And while the ME80 is not without limitations, most often these are fair trade-offs for simplicity. It's a smart, streamlined way of getting a lot of sounds for a very little dough, and some sounds, like the delays, combos, tweed amp voices, are a real pleasure to use and have a relatively organic feel. Now others, most notably the high-gain distortions, exhibit a little bit more digital edge and lack the touch and reactivity of the genuine article. Now, the unit definitely sounds best when paired with a tube amp, obviously, with a natural EQ setting. But cleaner sounds are effective with a good PA when you use the internal speaker simulator and you dial up a sweetening EQ that sort of massages the highs and the mids. Now, the real magic of the ME80, in my personal opinion, is its ability to deliver so many reasonably convincing sounds in a sturdy package that you can power with a pack of AA's or a DC adapter. This means a wealth of possibilities for remote performance and production. If all you have is a set of headphones, you can practice anywhere. So hook the ME80 up to a battery-powered amp, and you can even play for the rest of the world at any location. Say, jam on a mountaintop with all of the functionality of a traditional, familiar pedal board. So with all that said, the ME80 is definitely a smart design compromise of a multi-effects unit. So affordable and so easy to interact with that it rarely feels like any kind of compromise at all. Okay, let's get into some sound examples. I'll show you some of the presets, and I'll also show you my own personal preset that I've came up with. So another really cool feature of the Boss ME80 is that whenever you have the software downloaded, you have access to what's called the Boss's Tone Central. Let's take a look at the desktop, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, with the Line 6, like for instance the Pod XT Live, you had something sort of similar with them. But I don't think it was quite as in-depth as what Boss has went into. I know that there was an ability to save tones and upload tones, download tones onto the unit, but you can do the same thing here with the Boss ME80, only it's very fine-tuned. As you can see, I can go to each individual unit and actually make the adjustments here. The great thing too is that these numbers are representative of exactly what's being represented on the pedal board itself. So if you ever went into manual mode, like say you had this setting saved, but you wanted to go back into manual mode and use it like as individual pedals, you could simply just dial it back to these settings right here. And as you're moving the knobs, it will adjust it to where it's at on here. So if I wanted to dial this back on manual mode, I could just simply switch it into manual and then head over here and say, okay, the sustain was at 42, turn it to that until it shows that on the screen. The great thing is too, that means that you can tweak tones to like minute detail if you so wish. So let's go ahead and take a listen to some of these tones. Now, if you go in here to the Tone Central library, you'll notice that inside of here, there's all kinds of tones that are available. Acoustic, alternative, ambient, and each one of these that you go into, they have different patches that you can download. And so if I was to go in here and say, I wanted to download some Marty Friedman collection, I could just simply go in here, select the patches that I want, and then also just select all of them if I wanted as well, and then just download them into my set list, so to speak, and I could use those at any given time. So let me go back into the library, and these are some tones that I just recently downloaded, the ME80 Extra Collection. So as you can see, all I had to do is simply import those. You can back them up at any time, and you can also share these online, or you can share these presets through Google Links or whatever you need to do there. That's super cool. So if I was to select this one here, my entire pedal board is going to change to this tone. So let's take a listen. All right, so before we get into some of these tone examples, the first thing that any good guitarist should do is tune up. Luckily for you, the Boss Tone Central also includes a built-in tuner. All right. The cool thing about the Boss Tone Central is that it not only includes this tuner, but it also has a recorder. So if you want to loop a section of song that you've just recorded, you can use this as an internal looper as well. Also found within the Tone Central is a settings menu that has some really great settings when it comes to a home studio. For instance, this setting down here allows you to send the dry recorded version out of the Boss ME80 into your DAW. So for instance, you could record a dry version and a wet version, and then you would have multiple flexibility for recording options. All right, so now we've looked at some of the features that's within the Tone Central. We've looked at the library and how you can tweak anything within it. Let's go ahead and take a listen now to some sound examples of some downloaded tones that I've got here from the Bluesy pack, and we'll start with Foxy Woman. All right, and for this next example, I'm going to switch it into manual so you can see how that you can use each individual pedal, sort of like a normal pedal board would be used. So I'm going to switch to ambient all, which is a patch that I have created, and I'm going to switch it into manual mode so that I can use each individual patch as I go. All right, guys. Well, I hope this brief introduction to the Boss ME80 was informal and entertaining at the least, and I hope that maybe you learned something from it. If you're thinking of purchasing the Boss ME80, I have included a link in the description of this video where you can go and purchase that, and I will receive a small amount of commission at no extra cost to you for that, as it is an affiliate link. If this is the kind of content that you would like to see more often, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so that every time I upload a new video, you will be the first to know. I also go live every single week where I give feedback on mixes, on recording, and all things audio in general. So if that's something that you're interested in as well, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, guys, I will see you later.